Gideon Bogo is a sign language interpreter at the bottom end of your screen. Gideon, thank you, and thank you for making time for us here on KTN Prime. We begin our bulletin with a dramatic standoff between Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission detectives and the family of former Transport Cabinet Secretary Engineer Michael Kamau after the detectives dared to raid the home of the former CS in Karen earlier today morning. Engineer Kamau, who was acquitted of corruption charges last year, insists that the detectives did not have a search or arrest warrant. But hours later, the Director of Public Prosecutions ordered fresh prosecution against the former CS, saying there is enough evidence. Our senior reporter Rita Tinina was there just moments after the investigators laid siege at the home for over 4.5 hours. Here's her report.
Windy Ridge in Karen, over 10 Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission detectives backed by regular police arrived here at 5:30 a.m. on a mission to arrest former Transport Cabinet Secretary Engineer Michael Kamau. They tried to gain access to the home by all means before the family, which insisted it had nothing to hide, opened the gate. His family said the officers did not have a search or arrest warrant. The detectives laid siege at the home for over 4.5 hours before they left without arresting him or conducting a search. His lawyer, Nelson Harvey, said the raid was a blatant disobedience of a Court of Appeal order prohibiting investigations against him, his arrest or prosecution. But the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, on Tuesday evening ordered criminal prosecution against the former CS, saying there is enough evidence for fresh trial. In a statement, the DPP says the EACC has resubmitted investigative files on Engineer Kamau. And after careful analysis of evidence and the law, there was sufficient evidence to warrant criminal prosecution. Engineer Kamau, who was suspended from the cabinet in June 2015, was charged with abuse of office and flouting procurement rules in a 33 million shilling tender for the construction of the Kamukuiwa, Kaptama, Kapsokon, Sirisia Road in Bungoma during his tenure as the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Roads and Public Works between 2007 and 2008. He was acquitted of the charges in July last year after the Court of Appeal ruled that the EACC was not properly constituted when it forwarded his name for prosecution. In January this year, Engineer Kamau moved to court seeking to completely terminate the case against him in a bid to prevent any attempt to charge him afresh. He lost the bid last month, paving the way for the EACC to revisit the case. And with the new orders from the DPP, Engineer Kamau's wars may not be over yet. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
So it has emerged that Kenya Ports Authority has since April 2015 to date failed to account for 4,202 containers with goods on transit to Uganda and neighboring states. In February 2015, the Kenya Revenue Authority and the Kenya Ports Authority were involved in a tussle over unaccounted for 1,844 containers at the port of Mombasa destined for Uganda that led to 2.63 billion tax losses, and we'll have that story for you in a couple of minutes here on KTN Prime. But now, a gynecologist testifying against a case fronted by women's lobby group FIDA on grounds that medical practitioners should be given training to carry out safe abortions has told the court that he delivered 8 children daily and carried out 10 to 15 safe abortions every day from women whose health had weakened after trying to abort. Caroline Bay sat through the hearing and now brings us that report.
The petition wants the High Court to protect the rights of health workers and women's lives and health by restoring safe abortion trainings and by ordering the Ministry of Health to introduce standards and guidelines to clarify when legal abortions can be performed. On 24 February 2014, the Ministry of Health, through the Director of Medical Services, sent a memo to all health workers directing them not to participate in any training on safe abortions and not to use misoprostol and misoprostol drugs used to induce labor and abortion. The memo warned of dire legal consequences if they did so. The action, according to FIDA, left health workers without official guidance as to when they may provide safe abortion. The case resumed today with Professor Joseph Karanja, a gynecologist, explaining his encounter with abortions in his daily duties. Karanja told the court that the named drugs, if used incorrectly, can endanger the life of a mother. He added that no mother is compelled to terminate pregnancy unless guided by a trained health professional. He also testified that the drug mentioned in the ministry's memo, which is licensed by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, can be used elsewhere, even if disapproved by the Ministry of Health. FIDA said by prohibiting training on safe abortion care, the ministry's memo deters health workers from providing safe, legal abortion or post-abortion care. And to protect women's health and lives, it is essential that the Ministry of Health clarify when health workers can provide safe, legal abortion services, which formed the basis of the petition. The case continues on Wednesday, with more witnesses expected to take the stand. Caroline B., KTN News.
Let's now move to politics. And politicians allied to Deputy President William Ruto are now demanding that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission take action against ODM MPs who they claim uttered defamatory remarks against the DP. Those allied to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga have declared an open war against Ruto, with the focus being 2022 general election. But just what is the genesis of the renewed political rivalry between Ruto and Raila, the former ally stand foes? Our senior political affairs reporter Chris Tyrus sought the answers to this.
Friends at one time with equal status as the inaugural principals in the famous Pentagon team of the Orange Democratic Movement hold fallout during the Grand Coalition government in the aftermath of the disputed 2007 polls. Fast forward 11 years later, and Deputy President William Ruto and opposition chief Raila Odinga are locked in what could potentially be the most bitter dispute in the aftermath of Odinga's cooperation deal with Ruto's boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Kenyans are aware of these facts. They fear Ruto, and their fear, not Raila Odinga or the handshake, is standing in his way to the presidency.
These are sore losers who do not believe in competitive election. Now they have simply resorted back to scare tactics. They've realized that they cannot compete with William Samoei Ruto.
Kama nyinyi ni wabunge wa NASA, kwa nini mnafanya mkutano ya kuongea maneno ya Ruto? Si mfanye mkutano mseme Raila ndiye anatengeneza Kenya, si DMJ. Nini mnatoana na Ruto wapi?
But just what is the genesis of the renewed rivalry between the two leaders, viewed by most analysts as key political protagonists in the Kenyatta succession politics? Well, key Ruto handlers believe Raila has already begun his 2022 presidential campaigns to scuttle Ruto's chances of succeeding Kenyatta.
Sasa tunaamini kwamba Raila yeye anaangalia pale ingine hii 2022. Ni kwa sababu anakaa kifunga wale watu wanakaa kama wataenda 2022.
William Ruto is the one who almost made Raila the president. That is the only presidency that Raila can stand today and say it was stolen from him. Anything else apart from that, he's never won anything.
But is Raila really keen on being on the 2022 presidential ballot?
It was clear that Ruto was the man for 2022. I doubt there was anybody who was going to challenge Ruto, give him any meaningful challenge. But after the handshake, this was no longer the case. And therefore, he's, if you wish, he's the biggest casualty of the handshake.
Since the handshake, Kenyatta has been conspicuously silent on the referendum debate to expand the executive, only reacting recently during a State House meeting with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, expressing objection to a likely return to campaigns. But could Ruto be silently angry at Kenyatta for bringing their joint political competitor in the political fold?
The bigger problem arises out of the fact that nobody knows what the handshake is about. The fact that Uhuru and Raila have kept it secret is not helping matters. And I think if they don't come out soon, we are going to see a lot more bloodied wars.
Already there are fears that the renewed political rivalry between the deputy president and the former prime minister might just jeopardize the handshake and the benefits that it came with, even before the 14-man committee officially starts the building bridges process. A week ago, the 14-member committee held a retreat in Naivasha to familiarize members with the agenda and mandate, as well as set the ground rules with timely updates expected from President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Chris Dairu, KTN News.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of analysis on that relationship between the two. Now, Deputy President William Ruto differed with Senate Minority Leader James Orengo over the push for a referendum. The two leaders were among those attending the legislative summit in Mombasa, where members of county assemblies demanded better welfare terms, and that is where we bring in my colleague Francis Mtalaki, who is in Mombasa and attended that particular summit. Mtalaki, good evening, good to speak to you. What are some of the issues that the MCAs were raising in that summit?
Well, good evening, Linda. There are three key issues that MCAs have been raising with regard to today's session, which is the third legislative summit that is happening here in Mombasa. And one of them has to do with the car grants. The MCA are saying that they need car grants, as well as we can be able to say that the MPs are receiving car grants. And the second one has to do with the Ward Development Fund. And the third one is the pension scheme for those MCAs maybe who would have served for 2 terms or more. And they're saying that according to the law as it is now, there's no equity in terms of the honorable MCAs, and saying that their roles, that is to make sure that devolution works at the grassroots level, then for this to be able to be realized at the 47 counties, then they need those 3 demands to be settled on. But now it is up to the Senate and the top leadership led by the Speaker of the Senate, that is Ken Lusaka, was there. He agreed upon that they are going to deal with those issues and making sure that any constitutional amendments, that any constitutional bills that they will be presented. Some of the bills have already been presented in the Senate. They will be deliberated and forwarded to the President so that they can be fast-tracked, so as to have those 3 issues fast-tracked, and the MCAs can be able to get the car grants and also the pension and the Ward Development Fund. This is a serious issue with regard to the MCAs, and also it has also elicited some of the issues around the social media. And so those are some of the issues, Linda, that have come up from that summit today. Linda.
Great. Francis Mtalaki, later on in this bulletin, we'll get the chance to run part of what happened at that legislative summit that happened today in Mombasa. Thank you for your time. So we're taking a break, but when we come back, we'll be taking a look at the Solai tragedy. And there's an issue of compensation from families there, saying probably not enough is being done to compensate the victims, the families of the victims of the Solai tragedy. We'll be speaking to our Elfas Lagat in just a few minutes. So let's start that break now, then we'll speak to him after the break.